These are the oldest living ecosystems on our planet, ancient forests that have witnessed centuries of human civilization and remain largely unchanged today. Tonight, we explore rainforests from every corner of the world, from the Amazon basin stretching across South America to the primeval jungles of Borneo, from mist-wrapped temperate forests along the Pacific Northwest coast to Australia's Daintree, one of the most pristine and ancient forests on Earth. 6% of Earth's surface holds more than half of all known plant and animal species. Rainforests occupy that narrow sliver of land, and within it, somewhere between 40 and 75% of all living things make their home. The concentration of life in these places has no equal anywhere else on the planet. What defines a rainforest comes down to a few key characteristics. Significant rainfall arrives each year, typically ranging from 79 to 394 inches. Closed, continuous tree canopies spread overhead. Humidity stays high, and moisture-dependent vegetation thrives in the warm, wet conditions. The largest rainforests cluster near the equator, in tropical zones where temperatures hold steady throughout the year, rarely dipping below 18 degrees Celsius. Temperate rainforests also exist in cooler coastal regions, where ocean moisture creates conditions wet enough to support these ecosystems. These forests have stood for generations beyond counting. They survived countless storms, floods, and droughts. Indigenous peoples have called them home for thousands of years, and they continue to harbor secrets that science has only begun to uncover. Over the next 2 hours, we take a gentle journey through these forests. We learn about their structure, their wildlife, their indigenous peoples, and the ways they shape our planet's climate and weather patterns. We visit forests on every inhabited continent, and along the way, we discover why these ancient places hold such importance for the world we live in today. Settle in and get comfortable. Let the sounds of distant rainfall and the calls of exotic birds carry you through the green corridors of Earth's most biodiverse places. Part 1. The Amazon Rainforest. The Amazon rainforest earns its reputation as the most famous forest on Earth, and the numbers behind that reputation stagger the imagination. 6.7 million square kilometers of forest, spread across South America, an area twice the size of India. If the Amazon existed as its own country, it would rank as the 7th largest nation on Earth, and this single forest represents more than half of all remaining tropical rainforest on our planet. 9 South American countries share this forest. Brazil holds the largest portion at roughly 60% of the total forest area. Peru contains about 13%. Colombia accounts for around 10%, and the remainder spreads across Bolivia, Ecuador, French Guiana, Guyana, Suriname, and Venezuela. The Amazon River winds through the heart of this forest, stretching more than 6,600 kilometers from its origins in the Andes Mountains to where it empties into the Atlantic Ocean. Every second, approximately 175,000 cubic meters of water pour into the ocean, which represents between 1/5 and 1/6 of all the fresh water flowing from the world's rivers into the sea. No other river system comes close to matching that volume. The Amazon basin forms a vast depression in the South American continent, where countless tributaries, streams, and waterways wind through the forest. Some of these tributaries qualify as massive rivers in their own right. The Rio Negro, for instance, ranks as the second largest river in the world by water flow, and near its mouth at Manaus, Brazil, it reaches depths of 100 meters and widths of 14 kilometers. Rainfall across the basin averages approximately 2,300 millimeters annually, and in some northwestern regions, annual rainfall exceeds 6,000 millimeters. Constant moisture combined with warm temperatures that barely vary throughout the year creates ideal conditions for plant growth, and the forest has responded to these conditions with an explosion of life unlike anywhere else on Earth. 390 billion individual trees grow in the Amazon. That number deserves a moment to settle in the mind. 390 billion trees belonging to approximately 16,000 different species. This concentration of tree diversity exists nowhere else on the planet. A study from 2001 found that 1/4 square kilometer of Ecuadorian rainforest contained more than 1,100 tree species, and a single hectare of Amazon forest might hold anywhere from 100 to 150 individual species. 1 in 10 known species on Earth lives in the Amazon rainforest. Of all the millions of species that scientists have identified and catalogued, roughly 10% of them call this one forest home. Approximately 2.5 million insect species inhabit the Amazon. Scientists have catalogued more than 40,000 plant species, though many more await discovery. 2,200 species of fish swim in Amazon rivers and streams, making this the most diverse freshwater fish ecosystem on Earth, and one river in the Amazon may contain more fish species than all of Europe's rivers combined. The bird life reaches equally spectacular levels, with 1,294 bird species scientifically classified in the region, which means 1 in 5 of all bird species on Earth lives in the Amazon. That same ratio holds for the world's freshwater fish species living in Amazonian rivers and streams. 427 mammal species roam the forest. 428 amphibian species hop and climb through the vegetation, and 378 reptile species crawl and slither across the landscape. These numbers keep climbing upward as researchers discover more. Since 1999, more than 2,000 new species of plants and vertebrates have turned up in the Amazon, including one monkey species, notable for its cat-like purr. 1 square kilometer of Amazon rainforest can contain approximately 90,790 tons of living plant material. The biodiversity of plant species here reaches the highest levels on Earth, and scientists have registered more than 438,000 species of plants with economic and social interest, though many more await discovery and classification. This forest contains the largest collection of living plants and animal species anywhere in the world. The greatest concentration of life on land, and we have barely scratched the surface of understanding what lives here. Something remarkable happens in the Amazon that scientists did not fully understand until relatively recently, a phenomenon that researchers have come to call the flying rivers. The trees of the Amazon act like enormous pumps, drawing water up from the ground through their roots and releasing it into the atmosphere through their leaves. This process, called transpiration, happens in the Amazon on an almost unimaginable scale. 400 billion trees release approximately 20 billion tons of water vapor into the atmosphere every single day. A single tree can release enough water to fill 10 bathtubs daily, and multiplied across hundreds of billions of trees. This creates massive atmospheric rivers of water vapor flowing across the continent. These flying rivers carry moisture thousands of kilometers and influence rainfall patterns across South America and potentially as far away as the western United States. Researchers found that the Amazon's flying rivers contribute to rainfall in southern Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina, and the water that rises from the forest canopy forms clouds, travels on atmospheric currents, and falls as rain in distant regions. Between 50 and 80% of the moisture that falls as rain in the Amazon gets recycled through this process. Water evaporates from the Atlantic Ocean, falls as rain over the forest, gets absorbed by trees, returns to the atmosphere through transpiration, forms new clouds, and falls again. A molecule of water might complete this cycle many times between leaving the surface of the Atlantic Ocean and eventually returning to it via the Amazon River. This recycling system sustains not just the Amazon, but the climate of South America and beyond. When trees disappear, the flying rivers weaken. Less moisture enters the atmosphere, rainfall decreases, and distant regions that depend on that moisture for agriculture and drinking water begin to suffer. The Amazon does not just receive rain, it creates rain and regulates weather patterns across a continent. More than 30 million people live in the Amazon region today, distributed across 8 countries and 1 overseas territory, representing 350 different ethnic groups. Of this total population, approximately 2.7 million identify as indigenous Amazonians, about 9% of the region's inhabitants. Indigenous peoples have lived in the Amazon for at least 11,000 years, and possibly much longer. Before European contact, the population of the Amazon basin likely far exceeded today's numbers, with some researchers estimating that 8 to 10 million people lived here before Europeans arrived. That population suffered devastation in the centuries following contact. Within the first 100 years of European presence, an estimated 90% of the indigenous population vanished due to disease, violence, and displacement. Survivors retreated into the deeper parts of the forest, either as a defensive measure or because they had traditionally lived in more remote areas. Today, approximately 1.5 million of the Amazon's population identifies as indigenous, distributed across 385 ethnic groups. In Brazil alone, nearly 900,000 indigenous people speak 274 distinct languages, an extraordinary diversity of cultures, traditions, and ways of life. 60 groups remain largely isolated from the outside world, and these uncontacted tribes live in remote regions of Peru, Colombia, Brazil, Paraguay, and possibly Ecuador and Bolivia. They actively avoid outside contact, seeking to preserve their autonomy and their way of life, and governments in Brazil, Peru, and Colombia have granted substantial territories to protect these groups. Though conflicts continue with illegal loggers, miners, ranchers, and drug traffickers who trespass onto their lands, indigenous peoples have proven to be the forest's most effective stewards. Research shows that approximately 12% of the Amazon's terra firma forests are anthropogenic, meaning intentional indigenous stewardship shaped them over millennia. These peoples did not simply live in the forest, they managed it, cultivating useful species, maintaining clearings, and developing sophisticated knowledge of which plants could serve for food, medicine, and materials. Indigenous managed lands often show equal or greater biodiversity than conventional protected areas. The people who have lived here longest knew how to use the forest without destroying it, and their knowledge, accumulated over thousands of years, represents an irreplaceable resource for understanding how humans can live sustainably in these environments. Part 2. The Congo Basin. We cross the Atlantic now to Central Africa, to a forest often called the lungs of Africa. The Congo Basin rainforest ranks as the second largest tropical forest in the world. Smaller than the Amazon, but still vast beyond easy comprehension. 300 million hectares spread across 6 countries. with the Democratic Republic of the Congo containing roughly 60% of the forest area, plus Cameroon, the Central African Republic, the Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. The basin itself, including the river system that drains it, covers approximately 3.7 million square kilometers, an area larger than India. The Congo River winds through the heart of this region, ranking as the second largest river in the world by discharge, providing water and life to the rainforest. Over 70% of Africa's tropical forests exist within the Congo Basin. Species found nowhere else on Earth make their home here, including the forest elephant, the bonobo, the mountain gorilla, and the okapi. The okapi, a short-necked relative of the giraffe endemic to the northeastern Congolian rainforests, exists nowhere else in the wild. Temperatures average around 27 degrees Celsius during the dry season and 26 degrees during the rainy season. Rainfall typically ranges between 1,500 and 2,000 millimeters annually, though some areas receive far more. And the base of Mount Cameroon, on the western edge of the region, counts as one of the wettest places on Earth, receiving over 10 meters of rain annually. The Congo Basin holds another distinction that few people know about: the highest lightning strike frequency anywhere on the planet. Constant interaction between warm, moist air and weather systems creates thunderstorms of tremendous power, and this energy combined with consistent rainfall and warmth has nurtured one of the most important forest ecosystems on Earth. 1 in 5 of Earth's living species calls the Congo Basin home. More than 10,000 plant species grow here, 30% of which exist nowhere else on Earth. 400 species of mammals roam the forest, including forest elephants, leopards, bongos, red river hogs, chimpanzees, bonobos, mountain gorillas, and lowland gorillas. The okapi deserves special attention. This elusive animal, with its zebra-striped legs and reddish-brown body, remained unknown to Western science until 1901. It lives only in the dense forests of the northeastern Congo. And even today, photographing it in the wild proves almost impossible. Bird life includes 1,000 native species, from grey parrots to brown nightjars to bathawks. 700 species of fish swim in the Congo's rivers and tributaries, including the Nile tilapia, Nile perch, and giraffe catfish. 900 species of butterflies flutter through the forest understory. The Congo Basin's importance extends beyond its biodiversity. The forest holds roughly 8% of the world's forest-based carbon, a significant store of greenhouse gases that, if released into the atmosphere, would accelerate climate change dramatically. What lies beneath the forest floor carries even more significance. British scientists discovered in 2017 that the Congo Basin contains the world's largest tropical peatland. This continuous peat formation, stretching between the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Republic of Congo, covers an area larger than England and stores an estimated 30 billion tons of carbon, a figure that equals approximately 20 years of United States fossil fuel emissions. These peatlands consist of carbon-rich, thick layers of organic soil accumulated over long periods of time. Disturbing or drying them out would release their stored carbon into the atmosphere in quantities with global consequences, and protecting the Congo's peatlands has become a critical priority for climate scientists. Growing evidence suggests that the Congo's forests generate rainfall influencing areas as far away as the Sahel and the Ethiopian highlands, supporting an additional 300 million rural Africans. Deforestation of this rainforest and the resulting lack of rainfall raises major concerns on a continent with huge deserts and recurring droughts. Approximately 90 million people live in the Congo Basin rainforest. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo alone, some 40 million of the country's inhabitants depend on the rainforest for their livelihood. Within the rainforest itself, between 130,000 and 170,000 indigenous people live according to government estimates. Some civil society organizations put the figure higher, as many as 2 million. These peoples, sometimes called pygmies, after a term originating in ancient Greek referring to their shorter stature, often prefer being called indigenous peoples or forest peoples today. The major groups include the Mbuti of the Ituri forest in northern Congo, the Aka of the Central African Republic and northern Congo, the Baka of southern Cameroon, and the Twa of the Central Congo River Basin. These groups rank among the shorter-statured peoples of the world, typically not exceeding 5 feet in height. Some researchers suggest this may represent an adaptation, allowing for more efficient movement through dense forests, while others propose that smaller body mass helps regulate heat dissipation in the humid environment. Thousands of years of living in the forest have shaped these people's ways of life around hunting, gathering, and fishing. They treat their illnesses through their own pharmacopoeia and medicinal plants, and the forest lies at the heart of their culture and living environment. Indigenous societies in the Congo often organize into groups of 15 to 70 people, depending on hunting availability, trade relationships, disease prevalence, and the size of the forest area. Many groups traditionally practice nomadic lifestyles, moving to new parts of the forest several times a year and carrying all their possessions on their backs. This nomadic lifestyle serves an important ecological function. The group uses the resources in one area, then moves to another area while the former area recovers. Combined with low population densities and limited encroachment by outsiders, this approach has historically allowed wildlife populations to recover after a group abandons an area. When indigenous peoples establish a temporary camp, they generally clear the undergrowth, small trees, and saplings while leaving the canopy trees intact. Under the canopy, forest dwellers gain protection from the intense tropical sun and maintain a habitat for honey-producing bees and game animals. These peoples have contributed significantly to preserving the Congolese forests. Their traditional knowledge and practices represent an invaluable resource, yet their customary rights often go ignored. Indigenous groups face pressure from logging operations, conservation projects that exclude them from traditional lands, and the broader economic development of the region. Part 3. Southeast Asia and the ancient forests of Borneo. We travel now to Southeast Asia, to the third largest island in the world. Borneo sits at the center of the Malay archipelago, a massive landmass of 743,330 square kilometers, divided among 3 nations. Indonesia holds about 73% of the island. Malaysia holds about 26% in the states of Sabah and Sarawak, and tiny Brunei accounts for the remaining 1%. Borneo's rainforests rank among the most biodiverse on Earth and among the most ancient. These forests have developed over vast stretches of time, and they contain some of the most unique and specialized life forms found anywhere. Monthly rainfall exceeds 200 millimeters throughout the year, and temperatures rarely vary by more than 10 degrees Celsius. During ancient ice ages, all of Borneo, Java, Sumatra, and mainland Indochina connected as part of the same landmass called Sunderland, which allowed plants and animals to migrate from one region to the next. Today, Borneo lies separated from the Malay Peninsula and neighboring islands. but it still shares much of the same plant and animal diversity. The island's forests include tropical rainforests, mangrove swamp forests, peat swamp forests, montane forests, heath forests, and dipterocarp forests. Dipterocarp forests, dominated by trees of the Dipterocarpaceae family, stand as the most luxuriant and diverse of all plant communities found on the island. These trees grow to incredible size and durability, forming the backbone of Borneo's lowland rainforest ecosystem. Mount Kinabalu rises as the highest point on Borneo, the tallest mountain in Southeast Asia. As elevation increases, the ecological characteristics of the lowland rainforest give way to montane forests, with gradually changing species of flora and fauna adapted to cooler temperatures and different rainfall patterns. 15,000 plant species grow on Borneo, including 6,000 found nowhere else on Earth. Researchers identified the island as containing the highest levels of Southeast Asian plant and mammal species richness, making it one of the most biodiverse places on the planet. Among these 15,000 plant species grow 3,000 species of trees, including 267 species of dipterocarps, 155 of which exist only on Borneo. 2,000 species of orchids bloom across the island, and the Rafflesia arnoldii produces the world's largest flower. This plant has no visible leaves, roots, or stem, and exists as a parasite within the tissues of tropical vines, emerging only to produce its enormous, foul-smelling flower. 222 mammal species have been documented on Borneo, 44 of which are endemic. 420 bird species fly through the canopy, 37 found nowhere else, 100 amphibian species, 394 fish species, including 19 endemic ones, and countless insects that have never been fully catalogued, all call this island home. The orangutan stands as Borneo's most famous mammal. The Bornean orangutan exists only here, and its populations have declined by more than 50% over the past 60 years, with the species' habitat reduced by at least 55% over the past 20 years. These gentle great apes, whose name means person of the forest in Malay, now carry the label of critically endangered. Other notable mammals include the Bornean pygmy elephant, the smallest of the Asian elephant subspecies, and the Sumatran rhinoceros, a critically endangered species, whose Bornean subspecies sometimes gets called a living fossil due to its ancient lineage. The proboscis monkey exists only on Borneo, recognizable by its distinctive large nose. 12 other primate species share the island, including the Bornean white-bearded gibbon, Muller's Bornean gibbon, 5 species of langur, and several species of slow loris. The Bornean clouded leopard, a separate species from the clouded leopard found on the Asian mainland, serves as the island's top predator. Without tigers, which never colonized Borneo, the clouded leopard occupies the apex of the forest food chain. 380 species of birds include 8 hornbills, 18 woodpeckers, and 13 pitters. Reptiles and amphibians include crocodiles and the earless monitor lizard, a rare species found only on Borneo. Borneo does not stand alone. Nearby Sumatra, the world's 6th largest island, shares many of the same species and faces many of the same challenges. 60 million people live on Sumatra, which contains some of the last habitat for critically endangered species, like the Sumatran tiger, all 3 of the world's orangutan species, Sumatran elephants, and Sumatran rhinos. Together, Borneo and Sumatra represent some of the most biologically diverse habitats on Earth. Their tropical climate and diverse ecoregions have created habitats that house thousands of unique species. And the islands' proximity to each other and their shared geological history means they harbor overlapping populations of many species, while also containing distinct endemic species found only on one island or the other. Indonesia's forests represent 10% of the world's remaining tropical forest, the largest contiguous areas of forest in Asia, despite massive levels of deforestation in recent decades. Evergreen dipterocarp forest spreads throughout Indonesia and Malaysia as the major tropical forest type, providing suitable habitat for wild orangutans, tigers, rhinos, elephants, leopards, and proboscis monkeys. The peat swamp forests of the region, though lower in density and diversity than dryland dipterocarp forests, contain a large number of endemic species and serve as important reservoirs of biodiversity. Borneo's peat swamp forests are home to at least 927 species of flowering plants and ferns. These peat swamps function as critically important carbon sinks. Between 1/5 and 1/3 of global soil carbon remains locked in their soils. Despite their importance, peat swamp forests have suffered from a history of degradation, drainage, fires, logging, and conversion for agriculture. The rainforests of Borneo and Sumatra have paid a heavy price for human development. Borneo has lost more than half of its rainforests in the past half-century, and according to one 2020 study, 50% of the Bornean rainforest vanished between 1973 and 2015. Between 2002 and 2019, the Indonesian portion of Borneo lost 10.7 million hectares of tree cover, of which 4 million hectares consisted of primary forest. Malaysian Borneo lost 4.4 million hectares of tree cover during the same period, including 1.9 million hectares of primary forest. The causes follow familiar patterns, including logging, conversion to agriculture, palm oil plantations, mining, and fires. Palm oil production and coffee cultivation encroach on landscapes crucial to species conservation, and Indonesia and Malaysia account for over 90% of the world's total oil palm plantation area. In 1982 to 83, and again in 1997 to 98, forest fires in Kalimantan cleared around 25,000 square kilometers each time, often to make way for oil palm planting. These fires create dangerous atmospheric haze, affecting not just the immediate region, but neighboring countries as well. The consequences for wildlife have been severe. A 2018 study found that Bornean orangutans declined by 148,000 to 500 individuals from 1999 to 2015. And the species now carries the classification of critically endangered. Signs of hope do exist. Conservation initiatives like the Heart of Borneo program, launched in 2007 through a joint declaration between the World Wildlife Fund and the Indonesian, Malaysian, and Bruneian governments, seek to create protected areas and enhance sustainable forest management in Borneo's core rainforest regions. Various non-profits and organizations continue working to protect and restore the island's ancient rainforests. Part 4. The Daintree Rainforest. We travel now to the northeastern corner of Australia, to a forest that holds a distinction as one of the most pristine and ancient rainforests on Earth. The Daintree Rainforest, in far north Queensland, stands as a treasure of the natural world, a forest of extraordinary age and remarkable biodiversity. The Daintree has stood through countless generations. It survived ice ages, droughts, and floods. When the supercontinent Pangaea began to break apart, The ancestors of today's Daintree plants were already growing, and many of the species found here represent relics of that ancient past. Primitive, flowering plants that have changed little over vast stretches of time. Approximately 1,200 square kilometers of forest stretch from the Daintree River north past Cape Tribulation and west to the Great Divide. The Daintree forms part of the larger wet tropics of Queensland, a World Heritage Site listed by UNESCO in 1988 in recognition of its universal natural values. Despite its relatively small size compared to the Amazon or Congo basin, the Daintree contains approximately 3,000 different plant species from nearly 210 plant families. There are more than 900 different types of trees, and a single hectare of Daintree forest might realistically contain anywhere from 100 to 150 individual species. The Daintree stands as one of the only places on Earth where two UNESCO World Heritage Sites exist side by side. The rainforest stretches out to the Coral Sea, where the Great Barrier Reef begins, and at low tide on some local beaches, fringing reef becomes visible just offshore. This meeting of rainforest and reef creates a unique ecological boundary found almost nowhere else on the planet. Some of the most primitive flowering plants on Earth grow in the Daintree. The plant Ostrobilea scandens and Idiospermum australians both exist only here, found nowhere else in the world. These plants serve as living fossils, representatives of some of the earliest flowering plant families. The forest includes 12 of the 19 primitive flowering plant families and represents the origins of many of Australia's most familiar flora. Walking through the Daintree feels like walking through a botanical museum where plants inherited from the ancient supercontinent of Gondwana continue to grow as they have for countless generations. Among the most impressive trees stand the Queensland kauri pines, which grow as emergent species, rising tall and fast to punch through the rainforest canopy. These trees spread out like umbrellas at the top, blocking sunlight from the plants below. The Queensland kauri has no low branches and features a smooth, self-shedding bark that prevents vines and other plants from climbing up to compete for light. The Daintree's animals prove equally remarkable. 30% of Australia's frog, reptile, and marsupial species live here, along with 90% of the continent's bat and butterfly species, and 7% of Australia's bird species, totaling about 430 species. More than 12,000 species of insects have been documented, along with a multitude of fungi, lichens, mosses, and microorganisms. All of this life concentrates within an area constituting just 0.12% of Australia's landmass. An extraordinary density of life. Several of the Daintree's inhabitants exist nowhere else on Earth. The southern cassowary, a large flightless bird that can stand nearly 2 meters tall, roams the forest floor. It ranks as one of the most dangerous birds in the world due to its powerful legs and dagger-like claws, and it plays a crucial role in the forest ecosystem by dispersing seeds as it moves through the undergrowth. Bennett's tree kangaroo represents another remarkable resident. While most kangaroos inhabit open grasslands, Bennett's tree kangaroo has adapted to life in the forest canopy. It is rare and endangered, found primarily in the rainforests of northeastern Queensland. The white-lipped tree frog, the world's largest tree frog, makes its home here. On any nighttime walk through the Daintree, visitors might spot the glow of bioluminescent moss, fungus, and glowworms, a forest that literally glimmers in the dark. The Daintree's trees reach tremendous heights. The bull kauri, a species of conifer, can grow up to 50 meters tall and nearly 3 meters in diameter, and these emergent trees tower above the canopy, gaining maximum sunlight and attracting pollinators. The famed naturalist Sir David Attenborough has described the Daintree as the most extraordinary place on Earth. His assessment reflects the forest's remarkable biodiversity and unique heritage. The Daintree has been home to indigenous peoples for far longer than recorded history. 18 different Aboriginal camps once existed within the Daintree rainforest, each adapted to life in this ancient environment. The Kuku Yalanji hunted local animals, fed on vegetation, and developed extensive knowledge of the forest's resources. They knew which plants were edible and which were toxic, and they developed methods to process poisonous vegetation into safe food. European settlers arriving in the late 1800s disrupted this ancient relationship. Gold attracted Europeans to the rainforest, leading to mining operations that attacked the local tribes and destroyed portions of the forest. The first village in the area was not established until 1988. In a historic development in September 2021, the Eastern Kuku Yalanji people won formal ownership of 160,213 hectares of country, stretching from Mossman to Cooktown, including the Daintree National Park. This followed earlier native title agreements and represents a significant step in recognizing indigenous rights to their ancestral lands. Today, visitors to the Daintree can participate in Aboriginal guided walks through the rainforest, learning about bush tucker, Dreamtime stories, and the deep connection between the land and its First Nations people. Part 5. Temperate rainforests. Not all rainforests grow in the tropics. In the cooler latitudes of the world, where mountains meet the sea and ocean moisture creates conditions of constant rainfall, a different kind of rainforest thrives. These temperate rainforests exist, and the largest of them stretches along the Pacific coast of North America, from Alaska south through Canada to Northern California. The Pacific Northwest Temperate Rainforest stands as the largest temperate rainforest in the world. Its trees rank among the tallest on Earth, and its biomass, the total weight of living material per unit area, exceeds that of any other forest ecosystem, including the tropical rainforests. At the heart of this forest lies Olympic National Park in Washington State, which the National Park Service describes as the finest sample of primeval forests of Sitka spruce, western hemlock, Douglas fir, and western red cedar in the entire United States. UNESCO designated the park a World Heritage Site in 1981 in recognition of its exceptional natural beauty and ecological significance. Within Olympic National Park, the Hoh, Queets, and Quinault rainforests collectively form one of the most impressive temperate rainforest ecosystems anywhere. The Hoh rainforest receives some of the highest rainfall levels in the continental United States, with an average annual precipitation of 12 feet, 144 inches of rain every year. The result of all this moisture creates a forest of extraordinary lushness. Every surface wears a covering of moss, ferns, and lichens. Trees that fall to the ground become nurse logs, slowly decomposing over decades, while new seedlings sprout from their decaying trunks. Eventually, the nurse log rots away completely, leaving a row of mature trees standing in a line, their roots straddling the space where the original tree once lay. The trees of the Pacific Northwest Temperate Rainforest include some of the largest and oldest organisms on Earth. The coast Douglas fir can grow up to 280 feet tall, ranking it among the tallest tree species in the world. The western red cedar and Sitka spruce also reach massive sizes, with some specimens attaining heights of 300 feet. Old-growth trees in these forests can exceed 1,000 years in age. They have stood through centuries of human history, through wars and empires, through the rise and fall of civilizations on the other side of the world. Their massive trunks and spreading branches create a cathedral-like atmosphere beneath the canopy. Temperatures in the Pacific Northwest temperate rainforest stay mild year-round. Summer temperatures rarely exceed 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and winter temperatures seldom drop below the mid-30s. Persistent fog and cloud cover help maintain the moisture that the forest needs to survive. Roosevelt elk roam the forest floor, one of the largest subspecies of elk in North America. Black bears wander through the vegetation. Northern spotted owls, now endangered, nest in the cavities of old-growth trees. Pacific giant salamanders hide beneath rotting logs. Coho salmon and steelhead trout swim in the forest's many streams, providing food for birds, mammals, and the forest itself. When salmon die after spawning, their bodies release nutrients that bears and other predators carry into the forest. These marine-derived nutrients fertilize the forest floor, connecting the ecosystem of the ocean to the ecosystem of the rainforest in a remarkable cycle of life and death. The banana slug, North America's second-largest terrestrial slug species, serves as an indicator species for these forests. Growing up to 10 inches in length, these yellow or brown mollusks work as decomposers, breaking down dead plant material and recycling nutrients into the soil. North of the Olympic Peninsula in British Columbia, Canada, lies the Great Bear Rainforest. This coastal, temperate rainforest contains the largest expanses of old-growth temperate rainforest found anywhere in the world. The Great Bear Rainforest sometimes earns the name Amazon of the North due to its biological diversity. One of the rarest bear species on Earth lives here, the Kermode bear, also known as the spirit bear. This is not a separate species, but a subspecies of the American black bear with a rare genetic trait that gives it white or cream-colored fur. Only a few hundred spirit bears exist, all of them in the Great Bear Rainforest. The forest extends along the coast of British Columbia, from the northern tip of Vancouver Island to the Alaska border. It includes mountainous terrain, fjords, islands, and river valleys. And the diversity of habitats supports an equally diverse array of life. Like the temperate rainforests farther south, the Great Bear Rainforest features massive old-growth trees, including Sitka spruce, western red cedar, and western hemlock. Salmon runs. The Pacific Northwest is not the only place where temperate rainforests grow. Similar conditions exist along the coasts of South America, New Zealand, and Australia in the southern hemisphere. The Valdivian temperate rainforest of Chile and Argentina ranks as the second largest temperate rainforest in the world and the only one in South America. It stretches along the Pacific coast and up into the Andes Mountains, benefiting from moist westerly winds that bring heavy rainfall. This forest serves as a refuge for Antarctic flora, sharing many plant families and genera with the temperate rainforests of Australia and New Zealand. Fully half the species of woody plants exist only in this region. Among its most remarkable trees stands the alurse, a species that can live for more than 3,000 years and grow nearly 380 feet tall. The Valdivian rainforest also contains the monkey puzzle tree, a species with an ancient lineage. The southern pudu, the world's smallest deer, lives here, along with the Chilean guimal, large Magellanic woodpeckers, and rufous-legged owls. Temperate rainforests occur in New Zealand, primarily on the western shore of the South Island and throughout the North Island. These forests consist of coniferous podocarps and broadleaf evergreen trees. including southern beech. The ocarito kiwi, a rare flightless bird, lives in the South Island rainforests, along with the kerruroo, or New Zealand pigeon. Tasmania, the island state off Australia's southeastern coast, contains some of the world's largest populations of echidna, an egg-laying mammal. The Tasmanian devil, yellow wattlebird, southern brown bandicoot, platypus, Tasmanian giant freshwater crayfish, and Tasmanian bettong all make their homes in Tasmania's temperate rainforests. Part 6. The structure of rainforests. Rainforests, whether tropical or temperate, share a common structural feature. They organize into vertical layers, each with its own characteristics, its own communities of plants and animals, and its own relationship to the layers above and below. Tropical rainforests typically divide into 4 main layers, with the emergent layer at the top, the canopy just below, the understory beneath that, and the forest floor at the bottom. Each layer receives different amounts of sunlight, different amounts of rainfall, and different levels of wind exposure. Each layer supports distinct plant and animal species that have adapted to the unique conditions found there. Understanding this layered structure opens the door to understanding how rainforests work. The layers do not exist in isolation from each other, but as an interdependent system where processes and species in one layer influence those in another. Nutrients cycle from the canopy to the forest floor and back again, and animals move between layers as they search for food, shelter, and mates. The emergent layer consists of the tallest trees in the forest, those that grow above the general canopy and reach heights of 45 to 80 meters above the ground. In some exceptional cases, trees can grow to 70 or 80 meters tall. These giants tower above everything else in the forest, their crowns spreading wide to capture as much sunlight as possible. Life in the emergent layer presents challenges. Trees here must withstand hot temperatures, strong winds, and heavy rainfall, with no shelter from the elements. The sun beats down relentlessly during the day, and at night temperatures can drop significantly. Animals living in the emergent layer have adapted to these harsh conditions, and many of them can fly or glide between trees. Harpy eagles, one of the largest and most powerful eagles in the world, nest in emergent trees and hunt monkeys and sloths in the canopy below. Morpho butterflies, with their brilliant blue wings, flutter among the treetops. Bats of many species become active at dawn and dusk. Many of the animals in this layer have small body sizes because the branches of emergent trees are often thin and cannot support heavy weights. Flying and gliding animals have a clear advantage in navigating this open, windy environment. The trees of the emergent layer take full advantage of their position. The most openly spaced area of the forest allows them to spread their leaves wide to capture maximum sunlight. These trees include species like the Brazil nut tree, which can live for 1,000 years in undisturbed rainforest habitats, and the kapok tree, whose spreading crown can be seen from miles away. Beneath the emergent layer lies the canopy, a dense ceiling of leaves and branches formed by closely spaced trees. The canopy typically sits at heights of 30 to 45 meters above the ground and can reach roughly 6 meters thick. This is where the majority of the rainforest's primary productivity occurs. The canopy acts like a roof over the forest below, blocking winds, intercepting rainfall, and filtering out most of the sunlight. The environment beneath the canopy stays humid, still, and dark compared to the exposed conditions above. Between 60 and 90% of all rainforest species live in the canopy. Monkeys, sloths, toucans, parrots, tree frogs, snakes, and countless insects all make their home here. The canopy grows rich with fruits and nuts, providing food for the many animals that never descend to the forest floor. Scientists estimate that a quarter of all insect species on Earth may exist in the rainforest canopy. The richness of this habitat has long been suspected, but only relatively recently have researchers developed practical methods of exploring it. As long ago as 1917, the naturalist William Beebe declared that another continent of life remains to be discovered, not upon the Earth but 100 to 200 feet above it, extending over thousands of square miles. True exploration of the canopy only began in the 1980s, when scientists developed methods to reach this hidden world, including firing ropes into the trees using crossbows. Today, researchers use cranes, walkways, and even balloons and airships to study the canopy. Exploration remains in its infancy, and much of what lives in this layer, and how those species interact with each other, remains unknown. The leaves of the canopy can be likened to solar panels. They capture sunlight and convert it into energy through photosynthesis, powering the entire forest ecosystem. Without the canopy's photosynthesis, the rainforest as we know it could not exist. Below the canopy lies the understory, a layer of smaller trees, shrubs, and young plants that have adapted to life in the shadows. Only about 5% of the sunlight striking the canopy reaches the understory, and in some areas, as little as 2% penetrates this far down. The understory stays dark, humid, and still, with little air movement because the canopy above blocks most wind. Plants here have developed broad, large leaves to capture whatever light filters through, and many of these plants will never grow tall enough to reach the canopy. They have adapted to spend their entire lives in the dim conditions of the forest's middle layer. Despite the low light, the understory hosts a remarkable diversity of life. Jaguars prowl through the vegetation, their spotted coats providing camouflage in the dappled light. Leopards, boa constrictors, and various species of venomous snakes hunt here. Many bats, birds, and insects prefer the open airspace that the understory offers. Amphibians thrive in this layer because the humidity keeps their skin moist. Tree frogs, including the dazzlingly colored poison dart frogs, are common understory residents, and their bright colors serve as warnings to potential predators that they are toxic. The understory also serves as the starting point for many seedlings on their long journey toward the canopy. Trees that will eventually tower over the forest begin as small saplings in the shade, waiting for a gap in the canopy above to open and let in the sunlight they need to grow. At the bottom of the rainforest lies the forest floor, a world of perpetual twilight. Only about 2% of the sunlight striking the canopy makes it all the way down to ground level, and in some areas, even less light penetrates. You might expect the forest floor to be a tangled mass of vegetation, a jungle in the classic sense of the word. Primary rainforest tells a different story, with the forest floor actually relatively clear. The low light levels prevent most plants from growing, and what you find instead is a carpet of fallen leaves, broken branches, decaying logs, and shallow roots. This layer serves as the rainforest's recycling center. Dead plant material falls from above and accumulates on the forest floor. And in the warm, humid conditions, decomposition happens rapidly. Fungi of many species grow here, breaking down dead material and recycling nutrients back into the soil. Animals of the forest floor include some of the rainforest's largest species. Elephants move through African and Asian rainforests. Tapirs forage in the Americas. Jaguars, tigers, and other large cats hunt across the forest floor. Giant anteaters search for their insect prey. The soil beneath the forest floor turns out to be surprisingly poor in nutrients. In most temperate forests, fallen leaves decompose slowly, building up rich soil over time. In tropical rainforests, the warm temperatures and constant moisture cause dead material to decompose so quickly that nutrients get almost immediately absorbed by plants, with very little accumulating in the soil itself. This rapid nutrient cycling means that most of the rainforest's nutrients stay stored in the living vegetation, not in the ground. When trees are cut down and removed from the forest, those nutrients go with them. The soil that remains is often too poor to support agriculture for more than a few years. Part 7. Rainforest wildlife. Rainforests are home to some of the most iconic animals on Earth. Let us spend some time now exploring the creatures that make these forests their home, beginning with the mammals. The jaguar reigns as the largest cat in the Americas and the third largest in the world, after the lion and the tiger. Jaguars prefer the rainforests of Central and South America, ranging from Mexico south to northern Argentina and Paraguay, and their spotted coats provide excellent camouflage in the dappled light of the forest understory. Jaguars live as solitary animals and apex predators. Their bites deliver remarkable power, capable of piercing the shells of turtles and the skulls of caimans. They hunt equally well on land or in water, and have even been known to attack crocodilians. The International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List classifies the jaguar as near threatened, and since the 1880s, they have lost nearly half of their territory. Sloths rank among the most recognizable rainforest mammals, famous for their slow movement and peaceful demeanor. The three-toed sloth moves so slowly that algae grows on its fur, providing camouflage against predators. Digestion can take up to a month for a sloth, and these animals only descend from the trees about once a week. They can rotate their heads, almost like owls, to keep watch on their surroundings. The capybara, found in South American rainforests, holds the title of the largest rodent on Earth. Adults can weigh more than 100 pounds and stand 2 feet tall. Capybaras excel at swimming and can hold their breath for up to 5 minutes, using this ability to escape predators by diving into water and hiding beneath the surface until danger passes. Great apes make their homes in both African and Asian rainforests. Gorillas in the Congo Basin face critical endangerment, and these highly social animals live in family groups, care for their offspring for years, and can live to be over 50. Chimpanzees share about 98% of their genes with humans and exhibit complex social behaviors including tool use and communication. Orangutans exist only in the rainforests of Borneo and Sumatra. The word orangutan means person of the forest in Malay. These gentle apes spend most of their lives in trees and have declined dramatically due to habitat loss. The bird life of rainforests reaches spectacular levels in both diversity and color. More than 1,200 bird species live in the Amazon alone, while the Congo Basin hosts about 1,000 native species. Toucans stand among the most recognizable rainforest birds. About 40 species exist, and they play a key role in dispersing seeds throughout the forest. Their large, colorful bills can reach lengths of 20 centimeters or more, and these bills serve more than appearance. Toucans use them to regulate their body temperature, increasing blood flow to the bill to release heat or restricting it to conserve warmth. Despite their appearance, toucans do not fly with grace. They tend to hop from branch to branch, rather than taking to the air. Their calls are distinctive, often described as croaking like frogs, though some species can also bark and growl. Macaws are large, brilliantly colored parrots found in Central and South American rainforests. The scarlet macaw ranks among the most striking, with bright red plumage and brilliant blue and yellow wing feathers. Macaws have powerful beaks that can crack hard nuts and seeds, and they are one of the few bird species that mate for life. The harpy eagle ranks as one of the largest and most powerful raptors in the world. Found in the rainforests of Central and South America, it has a wingspan of 69 to 88 inches and the largest talons of any living eagle. Harpy eagles can lift prey equal to their own body weight and can reach speeds of 50 miles per hour. They hunt sloths, monkeys, and other canopy animals, occupying the apex of the rainforest food chain. Hornbills, found in African and Asian rainforests, are also remarkable for their large bills. The Congo Basin is home to several species, including the black-casqued hornbill and the white-crested hornbill. The warm, moist conditions of tropical rainforests make them ideal habitat for reptiles and amphibians. These cold-blooded creatures thrive in environments where temperatures remain stable year-round. Poison dart frogs rank among the most brightly colored animals on Earth. Their skin can be brilliant blue, yellow, green, red, or orange, often in striking patterns. This coloration does not aim to attract mates, but to warn predators. The bright colors signal that the frog is toxic and should not be eaten. About 170 species of poison dart frog exist, and most live in Central and South American rainforests. Despite their name, only about 3 species are actually lethal to humans. The golden poison frog stands as one of the most poisonous animals on Earth, and indigenous hunters traditionally used the frog's toxins to coat the tips of their blow darts, which is how these frogs got their name. The green anaconda of South America ranks among the largest snakes in the world. It can reach lengths of 30 feet and weigh over 500 pounds. Anacondas swim excellently and spend much of their time in rivers and swamps. They kill their prey by constriction, wrapping their powerful coils around animals and squeezing until the prey suffocates. Electric eels, despite their name, are not actually eels but a species of knifefish. They can generate electrical shocks of up to 800 volts, which they use to stun prey and defend against predators. Electric eels can reach lengths approaching 8 feet and inhabit the murky waters of the Amazon River system. Caimans, relatives of alligators, are common in South American waterways. They range from the small spectacled caiman to the large black caiman, which can reach lengths of over 16 feet. Black caimans function as apex predators in their habitat and will attack almost anything that enters their territory. For all the attention paid to rainforest mammals and birds, the true masters of these forests are the insects. The Amazon alone harbors an estimated 2.5 million insect species, and the vast majority of rainforest species are insects, most of which have never been scientifically described. The rainforest canopy is particularly rich in insect life. Scientists estimate that a quarter of all insect species on Earth may live in tropical forest canopies, including beetles, butterflies, ants, bees, wasps, flies, and countless others. Leafcutter ants rank among the most remarkable rainforest insects. These ants cut pieces of leaves and carry them back to their underground colonies, where they use the leaf material to cultivate fungus gardens. The fungus, not the leaves, is what the ants actually eat. Some leafcutter colonies can contain millions of individuals and extend underground across areas the size of a house. Blue morpho butterflies, found in Central and South American rainforests, are famous for their brilliant, iridescent blue wings. The blue color does not come from pigments, but from the microscopic structure of the wing scales, which reflect light in ways that create the vivid hue. The banana slug of Pacific Northwest temperate rainforests is not an insect, but a mollusk. This creature can grow up to 10 inches in length, making it the second largest terrestrial slug species in the world. Banana slugs work as important decomposers, breaking down dead plant material on the forest floor. Spiders of many species inhabit rainforests at all levels. Some species spin enormous webs between trees to catch flying insects, while others are ground hunters that chase down their prey. Tarantulas, large hairy spiders found in tropical rainforests around the world, can have leg spans of up to 12 inches. Part 8. Medicinal treasures. Rainforests have earned the description of the world's largest pharmacy, and for good reason. Over 25% of modern medicines derive from rainforest plants, and 70% of plants identified as having anti-cancer properties grow only in tropical rainforests. These numbers become even more striking when you consider that less than 5% of Amazon plant species have been studied for their medicinal potential. The vast majority of rainforest plants remain unexplored by pharmaceutical science, and what has been discovered so far represents only a glimpse of what these forests might offer. Indigenous peoples have used rainforest plants for healing for years. The World Health Organization estimates that 80% of people in developing countries still rely on traditional plant medicine for their primary healthcare needs. The knowledge accumulated by shamans and healers over countless generations represents an invaluable resource that modern science is only beginning to understand. 121 prescription drugs come from higher plants. Among the world's 25 best-selling pharmaceutical agents, 12 derive from natural products, and many of these compounds could not be synthesized cost-effectively in laboratories. They can only come from the plants that produce them. Some of the most important medicines in human history have come from the Amazon rainforest. Quinine, the first effective treatment for malaria, came from the bark of the cinchona tree, which grows in the high jungles east of the Andes. The discovery of quinine stands as one of the great stories of ethnobotany. The Quechua people of Peru and Bolivia had long used cinchona bark to prevent shivering in cold weather, mixing the ground bark with sweetened water to create a drink they found medicinal. When European missionaries and colonists encountered this practice, they recognized its potential for treating malaria, which was devastating tropical populations. The bark and its extract, which became known as quinine, eventually made its way to Europe. The bitter taste of quinine tonic is what led British colonials in tropical climates to mix it with gin, creating the gin and tonic cocktail that remains popular today. Curare is another substance with origins in Amazonian indigenous knowledge. This deadly poison, derived from the bark of various liana vines, was used by hunters to tip their blow darts. The poison would paralyze prey without making the meat toxic to eat. Scientists discovered that curare contained alkaloids that could serve medicinal purposes. The compound D-tubocurarine is now used to treat multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, and other muscular disorders. Its muscle-relaxing properties make it valuable as a surgical anesthesia, permitting tonsillectomies, eye surgeries, and abdominal operations. Cat's claw, a vine known scientifically as Uncaria tomentosa, has been used for centuries in traditional Amazonian medicine. Indigenous peoples use both its bark and roots to treat arthritis, stomach ulcers, inflammation, dysentery, and fevers. Modern studies indicate that cat's claw may stimulate the immune system, help relax smooth muscles, dilate blood vessels to lower blood pressure, and act as a diuretic. It also has antioxidant properties, and early research suggests it might even kill tumor and cancer cells in laboratory tests. It is being studied as a possible treatment for HIV and AIDS. Not all rainforest medicines come from the Amazon. The rosy periwinkle, or Madagascar periwinkle, is a flower native to the African island nation of Madagascar. Local populations traditionally used the plant to treat diabetes. But when researchers examined the flower more closely, they discovered something unexpected. The Madagascar periwinkle contains compounds that can stop cells from dividing, a property making it potentially useful against cancer, which is fundamentally a disease of uncontrolled cell division. Two alkaloids derived from the plant, vincristine and vinblastine, are now widely used to treat cancers, including Hodgkin's lymphoma and leukemia. The impact of these drugs has been profound. Before their development, childhood leukemia was almost always fatal. Today, thanks in part to vincristine, the chance of remission from lymphocytic leukemia stands at 99%. For Hodgkin's disease, survival rates improved from 19% in 1960 to 58% with treatment. These are not incremental improvements, but transformational advances that have saved countless lives. The story of the Madagascar periwinkle illustrates why rainforest conservation matters for human health. If this plant had gone extinct before researchers discovered its properties, millions of children might have died from leukemia. How many other potentially life-saving compounds wait to be discovered in plants that we have not yet studied? For every rainforest medicine that has been developed, countless more remain undiscovered. Only a tiny percentage of rainforest plants have been analyzed for their pharmaceutical potential. The Amazon alone contains over 40,000 plant species, the vast majority of which have never been examined by modern science. Researchers estimate that around 30,000 medicinal plants can be found in the Amazon rainforest alone, and indigenous peoples use thousands of these plants for traditional medicine. Many of these uses have been passed down for generations, refined through trial and error over centuries. The jabarandi plant, for example, produces pilocarpine, a drug that treats glaucoma. It can also assist patients with dry mouth, making it beneficial for cancer patients undergoing chemotherapy. Sangre de grado, a red sap from a South American tree, has been studied for various uses, including treatment for cancer, irritable bowel syndrome, viral respiratory infections, wounds, and hemorrhoids. Translating traditional knowledge into modern medicine presents challenges. The process of drug development is expensive, time-consuming, and often unsuccessful, with many promising compounds failing in clinical trials. The destruction of rainforests threatens to eliminate species before their medicinal properties can be discovered. The loss of indigenous knowledge compounds this problem. When traditional healers die without passing on their knowledge, centuries of accumulated wisdom can disappear in a single generation. When indigenous peoples are displaced from their lands, their connection to the plants they have used for healing is severed. 70% of cancer medicines with active plant-derived ingredients come from rainforest plants, and more than 60% of anti-cancer drugs originate from natural sources, including many from rainforests. These statistics suggest that the rainforests contain far more medicinal wealth than we have yet tapped. Part 9. Sounds of the rainforest. If you have ever listened to recordings of rainforests or been fortunate enough to visit one in person, you know that these are not silent places. From dawn to dusk and through the night, The rainforest is alive with sound, and understanding these sounds gives us another way to appreciate the complexity of these ecosystems. During the day, the rainforest soundscape is dominated by birds. Parrots and macaws screech and call from the canopy. Toucans make their distinctive croaking sounds, which can resemble the calls of frogs. Hundreds of smaller birds add their songs to the chorus, creating a constant backdrop of chirps, whistles, and trills. The canopy comes alive with the sounds of monkeys. Howler monkeys are considered the loudest land animals on Earth, and their calls can be heard from miles away, echoing through the forest as they communicate with each other across vast distances. Spider monkeys add their own barking calls to the mix, while various other primate species contribute their own vocalizations. Insects provide a constant background hum. The buzzing of bees, the chirping of cicadas, and the clicking of countless other insects create a persistent layer of sound underlying everything else. This insect chorus rises and falls throughout the day as different species become active at different times. The rustling of leaves and branches adds to the soundscape as animals move through the canopy. Wind through the trees creates a gentle susurration, the soft sound of millions of leaves brushing against each other. When rain falls, as it often does in the rainforest, the sound changes completely, with drops pattering against leaves at every level of the forest. As the sun sets, the daytime sounds fade, and an entirely different chorus takes their place. Nighttime in the rainforest is dominated by the calls of frogs and insects. Frogs serve as the stars of the nighttime soundscape. The croaks, ribbits, and trills of dozens of species create a constant chorus that can be almost overwhelming in its intensity. Each species has its own distinctive call, used to attract mates and defend territory. In the Amazon, the diversity of frog species means that the nighttime chorus includes an extraordinary range of sounds. The famous coqui frog of Puerto Rico produces a distinctive two-note call that sounds like coqui. This small tree frog has become so associated with the island's rainforests that it has become a cultural symbol, and people who grew up hearing the coqui often find its sound deeply comforting and nostalgic. Insects continue their chorus into the night, though different species are active than during the day. Crickets add their rhythmic chirping to the mix. Nocturnal cicadas and katydids contribute their own sounds, and the overall effect creates a wall of sound that seems to come from everywhere at once. Nocturnal birds add their calls to the mix. The potu, a strange nocturnal bird found in Central and South American rainforests, has a haunting call that echoes through the darkness. During the day, the potu is so well camouflaged as a tree branch that it can sleep in the open without being detected by predators. The sounds of flowing water are often present as well. Streams, rivers, and waterfalls create a constant background of rushing and gurgling that many people find deeply relaxing. This white noise effect is one reason why rainforest recordings remain popular for meditation and sleep. Something deeply calming exists in the sounds of nature in general and rainforest sounds in particular. Researchers have found that exposure to natural soundscapes can reduce stress, lower blood pressure, and promote feelings of well-being. The constant, layered nature of rainforest sounds creates what is sometimes called pink noise or brown noise, depending on the frequency distribution. Unlike the harsh, sudden sounds of urban environments, natural sounds tend to be continuous and predictable. Our nervous systems respond to this predictability by relaxing, allowing us to feel safe and at ease. The explanation may be that our ancestors lived in environments not unlike these. For most of human history, people lived surrounded by natural sounds. The calls of birds and insects, the rustle of leaves, the sound of running water. These were the sounds of safety, of an environment rich in food and water, of a place where a human could survive and thrive. Modern urban environments, by contrast, are full of sudden, unpredictable noises. Cars honk, sirens wail, machines rumble. Our nervous systems interpret these sounds as potential threats, keeping us in a state of low-level alertness that can become exhausting over time. Listening to rainforest sounds may help us reconnect with a more peaceful state of being. The gentle chorus of frogs and insects, the rustle of leaves in the breeze, the distant sound of rain. These sounds tell our ancient brains that all is well, that we are safe, that we can let down our guard and rest. Part 10. Climate and the rainforests. Rainforests play a major role in regulating Earth's climate, though not always in the ways that popular understanding suggests. Let us take some time to explore the complex relationship between rainforests and climate. 100 billion metric tons of carbon sits stored in the Amazon rainforest, roughly 10 times the amount of carbon that humans emit into the atmosphere each year. If the Amazon were completely destroyed and all that carbon were released, it would equal up to 140 years of human-caused carbon emissions. This carbon is stored in the trees themselves, in their trunks, branches, leaves, and roots. It is also stored in the soil and in the vast root networks that spread beneath the forest floor. Living forests act as carbon sinks, continuously pulling carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere through photosynthesis and incorporating it into their growing biomass. The Congo Basin holds roughly 8% of the world's forest-based carbon. The peatlands discovered beneath the Congo forest in 2017 carry even more significance. These peat deposits store an estimated 30 billion tons of carbon, roughly equivalent to 20 years of United States fossil fuel emissions. When forests are burned, cleared, or degraded, they release their stored carbon back into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. The clearing and burning of tropical forests releases more than 1 billion metric tons of carbon into the atmosphere each year, accounting for more than 10% of human-caused carbon emissions. You may have heard the Amazon called the lungs of the Earth, responsible for producing 20% of the world's oxygen. This claim is widespread, and understanding what it actually means and where it falls short is important. The Amazon does contribute significantly to oxygen production through photosynthesis. During this process, trees absorb carbon dioxide and water, use sunlight to convert them into sugars, and release oxygen as a byproduct. Estimates suggest that the Amazon contributes somewhere between 6 and 9% of the oxygen produced by photosynthesis on land. The forest also consumes oxygen. Trees do not just produce oxygen during the day. At night, they absorb oxygen during a process called cellular respiration, using it to break down the sugars they created during the day and release energy. The countless microbes, fungi, and other organisms in the forest also consume oxygen as they decompose dead plant material. When scientists account for all the oxygen production and consumption in the Amazon ecosystem, the net contribution comes close to zero. The forest essentially consumes as much oxygen as it produces over time. In a mature forest, new growth that stores carbon is balanced by the respiration of living organisms and the decay of dead material. The majority of the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere, between 50 and 80%, actually comes from marine organisms, particularly tiny single-celled creatures called phytoplankton. A single species of cyanobacteria, Prochlorococcus, may produce up to 20% of the oxygen in the biosphere. This does not mean the Amazon is not important. It absolutely is. Its importance lies primarily in carbon storage, climate regulation, water cycling, and biodiversity, not in oxygen production. Scientists have been warning for years that the Amazon rainforest may be approaching a tipping point. This is a threshold beyond which the forest could begin transforming into a very different ecosystem, potentially releasing vast amounts of stored carbon and disrupting climate patterns across South America and beyond. The concern is that accumulated deforestation, combined with climate change, may destabilize the forest's ability to maintain itself. The flying rivers that we discussed earlier depend on having enough trees to pump water into the atmosphere. If too many trees are removed, rainfall may decrease, leading to more droughts, which lead to more tree death, which leads to even less rainfall. Some parts of the forest are already showing signs of stress. Southern and eastern portions of the Amazon have experienced widespread tree die-offs. In 2021, it was reported that the Amazon emitted more greenhouse gases than it absorbed for the first time, at least in some regions. Research published in 2023 found that for every 100 trees deforested, 22 additional trees die in regions distant from the deforestation due to lack of water. This domino effect means that the impact of deforestation extends far beyond the areas that are actually cleared. Currently, around 20% of the Amazon has been deforested. Some scientists warn that if this figure reaches 40%, it could trigger a cascade that transforms much of the remaining forest into savanna. At that point, the Amazon would lose around 60% of its vegetation density, leading to what researchers call a climate collapse in the rainforest. Whether the Amazon has already crossed its tipping point remains uncertain. Climate systems are complex and non-linear, meaning that observed changes are not always directly proportional to temperature increases. The scientific consensus is clear that the time to act is now, before the situation becomes irreversible. Part 11. Conservation. Let us confront some difficult numbers. In 2024, the tropics lost a record-shattering 6.7 million hectares of primary rainforest. That is an area nearly the size of Panama, lost in a single year. Tropical primary forest disappeared at a rate of 18 football fields per minute in 2024, nearly double the rate of the previous year. Fire became the dominant driver of forest loss in 2024, responsible for almost half of the destruction. Climate change has created hotter, drier conditions that turn even intentional burns into runaway fires, spreading far beyond their intended boundaries. Brazil accounted for 42% of all tropical primary forest loss worldwide. The country experienced its most intense and widespread drought in 7 decades, which combined with high temperatures caused fires to spread at unprecedented scale. The loss of tropical primary forest in 2024 alone caused 3.1 gigatons of greenhouse gas emissions, equivalent to slightly more than India's entire annual fossil fuel emissions. Humans have destroyed nearly half of the world's original forest cover. About 13% of the original Amazon has already been lost to deforestation. Borneo has lost more than half of its rainforests in the past half-century, and 70% of Borneo's ancient rainforests have been destroyed since the late 20th century. The causes of deforestation are familiar and interconnected. Agriculture is the largest driver, both small-scale subsistence farming and large industrial operations. Cattle ranching, soy cultivation, and palm oil plantations have all consumed vast areas of former rainforest. Logging, both legal and illegal, degrades forests even when it does not clear them completely. Roads cut into the forest to extract timber open pathways for settlers, hunters, and further development. Once a forest is fragmented by roads, it becomes more vulnerable to fire, drought, and illegal encroachment. Mining operations extract gold, minerals, and oil from beneath the forest floor. These operations often involve clearing vegetation, digging pits, and using chemicals that contaminate water sources. In some regions, illegal mining is controlled by criminal organizations that operate with impunity. Infrastructure development, including roads, dams, and power lines, fragments forests, and opens previously inaccessible areas to exploitation. A highway through the rainforest can transform the landscape for hundreds of miles on either side, as settlers follow the road into the forest. Climate change itself now contributes to forest loss. Hotter temperatures and more frequent droughts stress trees and make forests more vulnerable to fire. The fires of 2024 were partly driven by climate conditions that made normal dry season burning spiral out of control. Despite the sobering statistics, there are reasons for cautious optimism. Conservation efforts have achieved real successes in recent years. Brazil's Amazon saw deforestation fall by 30.6% between August 2023 and July 2024, reaching its lowest level in 9 years. The roughly 6,288 square kilometers of rainforest cleared, an area roughly the size of Delaware, represents the smallest annual loss since 2015. This improvement reflects increased enforcement against illegal logging and land grabbing, along with policies that promote sustainable development and increase protections for indigenous lands. Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia also saw significant declines in forest loss in 2023. Indigenous territories have proven to be among the most effective forms of forest protection. In Brazil, approximately 12.5% of the country's total land area and 26% of the Amazon basin has been designated as indigenous territories. These reserves, formalized under Brazil's 1988 constitution, have supported the resurgence of indigenous populations after centuries of decline and have kept deforestation rates lower than in surrounding areas. In October 2025, a $1.7 billion pledge to support indigenous and local forest tenure was met a year early. This funding helps secure land rights for the people who have proven most effective at protecting forests. Protecting rainforests requires action at many levels, from international agreements to individual choices. Governments must enforce laws against illegal logging and land conversion. Companies must ensure that their supply chains do not contribute to deforestation. Consumers must be aware of how their purchases affect forests on the other side of the world. Supporting indigenous rights stands as one of the most effective conservation strategies available. Research consistently shows that indigenous managed lands have equal or greater biodiversity than conventional protected areas. The people who have lived in these forests for thousands of years know how to use them sustainably. Protecting rainforests can be remarkably cost-effective. One conservation expert noted that an acre of Amazon rainforest in Peru can be protected for just a few dollars. For the cost of a meal or even a coffee, an area of forest about the size of 4 football pitches could be saved, safely storing about 725 metric tons of carbon dioxide. Reforestation and forest restoration can help recover some of what has been lost. Allowing degraded areas to regrow naturally can sequester large amounts of carbon relatively quickly. Some estimates suggest that protecting rainforests and allowing deforested areas to regrow could contribute half of the solution to climate change, with reducing emissions from fossil fuels as the other half. Part 12. The Wonder of Rainforests. Let us step back from the statistics and the warnings for a moment and simply appreciate what rainforests are. These are not just collections of trees, they are living histories. Ecosystems that have been developing and growing for generations beyond counting. The Daintree rainforest in Australia has stood for ages beyond reckoning. It has survived everything that time has thrown at it. Walking through the Daintree feels like walking through a botanical museum. Plants inherited from the ancient supercontinent of Gondwana continue to grow here as they have for countless generations. Primitive flowering plants still thrive in this corner of northeastern Australia. The Amazon is equally ancient. Its rivers have been flowing through South America since long before recorded history. The forest has cycled through ice ages and warm periods, through countless generations of growth and renewal, through changes that we can barely imagine. These forests are not static museums. They are dynamic, changing ecosystems. Species adapt to their environments. Trees fall and new ones grow. Rivers change course. The fundamental character of the forest, its structure, its cycles, its astonishing diversity, has persisted through unimaginable spans of time. Everything in a rainforest is connected. The trees pump water into the atmosphere, which falls as rain, which gets absorbed by the trees, which pump it back into the atmosphere. The canopy provides food for the animals that live there, which disperse seeds, which grow into new trees, which provide more food. When a tree falls in the forest, it does not simply die and disappear. It becomes a nurse log, a substrate for new growth. Seedlings sprout from its decaying trunk. Fungi break down its wood, releasing nutrients into the soil. Insects make their homes in its hollows. Over decades, the fallen giant nurtures a new generation of trees that eventually stand in a row, their roots straddling the space where their nurse log once lay. Indigenous peoples have long understood these connections. They learned to take from the forest without depleting it, to use its resources without destroying its capacity to regenerate. Modern science is only beginning to understand the complexity of these systems. The discovery of flying rivers, the mapping of canopy ecosystems, the identification of new species. All of this represents progress in understanding. For every question answered, dozens more emerge. We have barely scratched the surface of what there is to know about these forests. Rainforests matter for reasons that extend far beyond their borders. The carbon they store affects the climate of the entire planet. The water vapor they release influences rainfall patterns thousands of miles away. The species they harbor include potential medicines that could save millions of lives. Rainforests also matter for reasons that are harder to quantify. They are beautiful. They are awe-inspiring. They connect us to a history that stretches back through countless generations. They remind us that we are part of something much larger than ourselves. Something profound exists in standing beneath a tree that was already old when Columbus sailed, that was already ancient when the Roman Empire fell, that will still be standing long after everyone alive today is gone. These forests put human concerns into perspective. They remind us that we are temporary, but life goes on. The sounds of the rainforest, the calls of birds and the chorus of frogs, the rustle of leaves and the patter of rain. These are the sounds of life continuing as it has for countless generations. When we listen to these sounds, we are listening to history, to the ongoing story of life on Earth. We have traveled far tonight. We explored the vast Amazon, stretching across 9 countries and harboring 10% of all known species on Earth. We visited the Congo Basin, Africa's great green heart, with its elephants and gorillas and ancient peatlands. We wandered through the ancient forests of Borneo, home to species found nowhere else on Earth. We stood in the Daintree, one of the most pristine rainforests on Earth, where primitive flowering plants continue to grow as they have for countless generations. We walked beneath the towering trees of the Pacific Northwest, where thousand-year-old giants reach heights of 300 feet and create ecosystems of extraordinary richness. We learned about the 4 layers of the rainforest, from the wind-swept emergent trees to the shadowy forest floor. We met jaguars and sloths, toucans and poison dart frogs, orangutans and harpy eagles. We discovered medicines that have saved millions of lives and realized that countless more await discovery. We heard the sounds of these forests, the daytime symphony of birds and monkeys, the nighttime chorus of frogs and insects. We understood why these sounds relax us, connecting us to environments not unlike those where our ancestors lived. And we confronted the challenges these forests face. Deforestation, climate change, and the pressure of human development threaten ecosystems that have existed for ages beyond counting. And yet we also saw signs of hope: declining deforestation rates in some regions, the effectiveness of indigenous land management, and the possibility of protecting vast areas of forest for surprisingly modest costs. 6% of Earth's surface holds more than half of all known species. Rainforests store vast amounts of carbon, regulate global climate, and cycle water across continents. They are irreplaceable. As you drift towards sleep, perhaps you can imagine yourself there, beneath a canopy of green, where sunlight filters through leaves and the air is thick with moisture, where the calls of unseen birds echo through the trees and the gentle rustle of wind plays across the forest, where life has flourished for countless generations and continues its ancient dance. These forests have witnessed countless generations come and go. They survived ice ages and floods, and they continue, tonight and every night, their eternal work of growing, cycling, living. The rainforests of the world are among the most extraordinary places on Earth. They are treasuries of life, libraries of natural wisdom, pharmacies of undiscovered medicines. They are also fragile, threatened by forces that operate far beyond their borders. Tonight, they are simply beautiful. Imagine the rain falling on leaves 100 feet above the ground. Imagine the soft calls of frogs in the darkness. Imagine the ancient trees, standing as they have stood for centuries, patient and enduring. These are the rainforests of the world, and they will be here, growing and changing and living long after we are gone. Sleep well and dream of green.